So I'm Julie Forey. Thank you very much for joining this session. I'm Director of Insight at EUCOM. Before I start, I just wouldn't mind seeing how many people actually have heard of EUCOM or know what we do or are. Okay, so that's good because I'm going to show you a little video in a minute. So I'll explain it. Well, the video will explain exactly who we are, and then I'm going to show you some insights from the data. So basically, EUCOM stands for UK Online Measurement. And we're an industry body that really sets the standard for measuring what consumers are doing online in the UK. You may well have heard of Comscore. They're our partner. We awarded the contract to them lastly in 2015. And that's ongoing at the moment. So what I'm going to do is, without further ado, I'm just going to show you the video rather than me waffle on what we do. I think this probably explains it a little bit better.
After a long debate on whether the UK online industry needed a common measurement standard, agencies, publishers and advertisers came together in 2009 to solve the problem of too many conflicting sources of online audience data. As a result, the UK online measurement company, EUCOM, was formed. EUCOM is co-owned by the Association of Online Publishers and the Internet Advertising Bureau. The Institute of Practitioners of Advertising and the Incorporated Society of British Advertisers are also represented in advisory roles on its executive board. EUCOM's prime role is governance, enabling a collaboration of industry stakeholders to identify and deliver a common UK industry standard for online audience measurement. In 2012, after an open pitch, the EUCOM executive and technical boards selected Comscore to provide this UK standard data. This exclusive contract was re-awarded to Comscore in 2015 for 3 more years. Comscore delivers 4 EUCOM-endorsed measurement products: MMX for desktop, MOMX for mobile and tablet, VMX for online video, and, bringing these 3 together, MMX Multi-Platform, or MMX-MP. Crucially, unique visitors and not browsers are a key unit of measurement in all 4 products. It is important to recognise the independence of EUCOM from Comscore. The EUCOM executive and technical boards set and continuously monitor the development and improvement of all EUCOM-endorsed products. The EUCOM Commercial Board, like the technical board made up of agency and publisher members, monitors Comscore performance, contract SLA compliance, and general product market relevance. EUCOM is not a JIC, a joint industry committee like BARB or RAJAR. Instead, EUCOM is a hybrid model of an independent governing body with a commercial partner who retains ownership of the data. The partner, Comscore, can use its EUCOM-approved data to underpin other commercial products, but these products themselves are not EUCOM-endorsed. In short, EUCOM is the whole online industry coming together to agree on and govern the standard for online audience measurement for UK brand planning. EUCOM, setting the industry standard for online audience measurement.
Okay, so that's the slightly boring bit out of the way, but that just explains what EUCOM does. We think it's really important in the industry that there is an independent third-party provider that measures what consumers are doing online. That's not to say we don't think there's brilliant data out there from media owners and publishers. You know, we all know likes of Google and Facebook have got huge volumes of data, but actually being able to look at the whole market, which is a nationally representative sample based on people, it's passively collected, so it's not claimed either. We believe it's really important, and we as EUCOM ensure that there's totally transparency around the methodology and the data. And I see Mike's here from Comscore, and he'll tell you that we do hold them to account, and we don't approve any of their products until it's gone through our technical and methodology team, one of which is Scott here. Okay, so as EUCOM, as well as kind of doing all that stuff, we also provide some insights and data on the market, using the Comscore data. Whilst you might use Comscore to help you sell, particularly if you're a publisher, you know, you get a briefing, you want to show, you know, how you perform versus the competition. I think there's a huge amount of value in using the data set for insights around what consumers are doing, consumer behaviour, understanding trends and things like that. And what I do, I'm Director of Insight at EUCOM, and we produce a huge amount of insights that if you're a subscriber to CompTIA, you'll already get if you've signed up to their newsletter or email address, but also you can sign up for this anyway, even if you don't. So you can have a load of freebies. I'm looking at Mike, thinking, I hope he doesn't mind. If you came to our website, you'd see all this data there. And it's all in the handouts as well for you afterwards. Okay, we do a quarterly digital market overview report. Most of what I'm showing you today is from the June one. The September one is being done as we speak. So look out for that in the next couple of weeks if you want the updated quarterly data. So what I'm going to do for the rest of the morning or the session is just go through some key insights from that data, some key consumer themes, trends, different things that we've looked at in the last year or so. So first of all, some of this you may know, some of it may be a surprise, but first thing is that the UK population now spends more time online on smartphones than any other device. So looking at the data, this is based on 18 plus. What I should say is we have data on 18 plus for all devices. Currently, we only have 6 plus on desktop, but we are working on that, and we hope next year to have a younger audience of mobile measurement as well. It's quite difficult getting to measure kids with mobiles, but I'm sure you can understand. So smartphones account for 50% of all online minutes, and you can see how that's split out. So desktop 37, tablets 12. So overall, if we're talking about mobile devices, and I will refer to mobile devices in this presentation, which is both tablets and smartphones, it's around 63% of time online. That was in June. New data shows that's even higher. So it's clearly growing. And this is showing what's happened over the last 18 months. You can see that smartphone share of time online is actually grown by 5 percentage points. Tablets, slight decline there, and you can see desktop as well. But what we're not seeing is we're not seeing a massive replacement of the desktop. Mobile devices have actually boosted time online. So we're actually spending so much more time online than we used to. It's not like we're saying, right, we're not going to use a desktop now, we're going to switch totally to mobile, although some people have done that, which I'll show you. It's more that the mobile device has given us the opportunity to be online kind of almost all of the time. And there's so many anecdotes on that. I used to work at both Microsoft, Xbox, and AOL, and we did a survey when we was at AOL asking when people use their mobile. And the amount of occasions, it was quite interesting. We obviously know people use it in bed a lot, higher amongst single people, so I'm not sure if that's a reflection of why they're single. And we know that people use it on the beach, on the way to work, obviously a natural one. And I think quite interestingly is the amount of people who use the smartphone on the toilet. So much so that I was reading that it's actually changing male behaviour, and they're more likely to sit down now so that they can multitask. And in Japan, they're actually introducing smartphone wipes in toilets because they've acknowledged that people are actually spending quite a lot of time on their mobiles in the loo. And I'm sorry to lower the tone, but I think it just shows you how many more occasions that you wouldn't have been able to use the online that you can now. And that's reflected in this. You can see, just looking at over the last 18 months, there's a slight decline in desktop minutes. But overall, what we're seeing is those mobile minutes are additional, so people just spending more time online overall. What we're also seeing is that now 3/4 of UK online adults are multi-platform, so that means they use at least one device, so more than one, 2 or more devices. And if we look at who they are, you can see 76% they're less likely to be older. So older people more likely to only use one device. And also they're less likely to be from social grades, higher social grades and lower social grades. And the reason for that mainly is I think higher social grades tend to be slightly older, favouring the desktop. Lower social grades we're finding spend more time on the mobile. And I think that's probably a reflection of both the nature of their roles and also the cost associated with buying both the PC and mobile device. 9% currently are mobile only. UV means unique visitors. So that means they're only using a mobile device. But interestingly, the mobile only audience is not comprised solely of young people abandoning the desktop. There's this idea that it's young people on mobiles all the time, so they're the people who are mobile only. If you look at that 9% and see actually who they are, you can see that it's split across age ranges. Now, given what I said about 55 pluses, you may find that surprising that there's still quite a lot of 55 pluses that are mobile only. The reason for that is, and I'll show this in a little bit, is that I think that tablets have brought in a new audience to the internet. So 55 pluses who weren't comfortable with desktop aren't quite comfortable with a smartphone. Tablets has been a real breakthrough in terms of attracting that audience to the internet. And my mum is certainly one of them. When we bought, she's in her 70s, and when I, God forbid, bought her a tablet for Christmas, she's now on Facebook all the time, which is a bit embarrassing for me because she can't actually use the keyboard. So she's constantly posting things on my thing where all it's spelt wrong. And so I think my friends think, you know, I'm like, oh. But anyway, so we're seeing older people using tablets. Also, mums. We talk about young people being mobile only, but mums are much more likely to be mobile only than millennials. Now, I'm a mum myself. I've got a 4 and a, I keep forgetting how raised, a 4 and a 5 year old, no, 3 and a 5 year old. And when we was younger, when we had the young kids, it's amazing, my sort of group of mum friends, how constantly we're snacking on our mobiles. You don't have as much time necessarily, if you're especially not working, to go upstairs, fire up the desktop. But actually, you know, the kind of things that mums are doing is WhatsApp, massively important for mums. Retail, shopping, social media, and actually entertainment, listening to music. Very much kind of getting the opportunity, doing it on the go when you get 5 minutes to spare. You don't necessarily have as much time anymore to sit down and do that longer desktop session. I said this before, SOLA's mobile use is higher amongst low and social grades, and I think I explained the reason. You can see that here. Lower social grades, more likely to spend more time only on a mobile. Higher social grades spend more time only with a desktop for the reasons that I explained before. The other thing, I think this is probably a little bit more obvious, is that smartphone usage increases with decreasing age. So again, this is looking at share of minutes. I think actually a lot of the stuff I've looked at here, rather than looking at users, I'm looking at kind of time spent, because I think that's a better reflection of how people are engaging with these products. Someone may use something but may go in it, you know, one occasion or spend 1 minute. But actually, if you look at time spent, you're getting a much better understanding of how these products are used. So you can see that 18 to 24, 60% of their time is spent on smartphone. And as you go up, that decreases. And it's the opposite true of desktop. And I think the one thing that I mentioned before that's quite interesting is looking at that yellow line is tablets. So as you get older, you're more likely than the rest of the population to spend a greater share of your time on a tablet. Here we go. Tablets have greatest appeal amongst older audiences. And just to prove that again, this is looking at the dark orange is looking at share of all their online minutes, and the yellow is looking at reach by age. And you can see that for the 55 pluses, 33% of their time spent is on a tablet, compared to only 10% of 18 to 24s, and they have the highest reach. So it really has kind of worked well. And I guess in a way it's quite obvious. They're quite simple to use. They're very portable. You know, you don't have to sort of sit in a study all day where they may not have access, particularly for the people who are retired. So I think it's less of a worry. My mum was always concerned about, you know, blowing up the computer because it always is a little bit difficult. I know I'm using a sample of one, which is what I shouldn't do in research, but it kind of helps illustrate things, I think. So as well as females and mums being more likely to be mobile only, they also spend more of their time online on smartphones than men do. So this is showing males versus females. Females spend 55% of all their time online on smartphones compared to only 46% of males. And when you add in the kids factor, you can see again it's even higher. So mums with kids spend more of their time on smartphones. But it's actually not the fact necessarily that they're women. Because smartphone share of minutes is higher generally among parents. If we look at dads as well, this is kids and no kids actually, so this is saying 58% of time spent is on a smartphone amongst people with children, compared to 48% who have no children. And here you go, and here's the split between mums and dads. So it basically goes to show that it's not just the women factor, it's the fact that people have children means it's actually probably a bit more convenient and it's easier just to pick up the phone, probably a little bit time poor, and so I think that illustrates that as well. So males with kids compared to males with no kids, again, a big difference, very similar to what we saw with females. So it's having children that is actually influencing or impacting platform choice. Am I going too fast or is this okay? Okay. The other thing as well is we're seeing it's not just one or two activities that people are doing on their smartphone. Even though things like social media and entertainment, they account for a huge proportion, they're actually reach is higher for pretty much all activities than desktop. So this is looking, the dark bar is looking at smartphone reach for a whole range of categories. The light blue bar is looking at desktop reach, and the yellow bar is looking at tablet. So there are a few exceptions. Portals more likely to be desktop, and It used to be adult as well, but maybe that's we'll move on from that one. The other thing is desktop sessions are 3 times longer than mobile sessions. So this is the average time spent per session. And don't forget what we're doing here is we're looking across the whole month. This is the month of June, across the whole of the UK population, and how much time they're spending. We can look at how much time they spend in the month or how much time they spend per visit, per session. So the average desktop session lasts around 27 minutes, so nearly half an hour, whereas the average mobile is about 8 minutes. That might seem long, but you've got to think within that mobile, and we're talking tablets and smartphones here, you will have things like Spotify listening, consuming maybe a film or a program via your tablet. So that will make that higher than you might think if you're just thinking you just pop in and have a look at the news while you're waiting for the bus or something. I kind of said this before, smartphones actually are used for all activities, but platform time is still very influenced by content and service. So this is basically showing those on the left are categories where the desktop is still key. People much more prefer to spend their time on a desktop. Tends to be kind of categories where it involves a lot of thought, maybe high value purchases, where you want to have a really good look at the pictures, so things like auto manufacturers, where there might be small print, car rentals, pharmacy, government, if you're going in to do the taxes, airlines, quite a big outlay. Don't necessarily feel happy just to sort of buy it on your phone without seeing all the ins and outs, worried that you might spend a lot of money doing something wrong. Smartphone, quite often instant messages, pretty much WhatsApp these days. And there's other ones in there that are pretty obvious. Job search, photos, that's Instagram. And maps, obviously, on the go. So it's quite interesting, actually. It's not on here, but if you go down a couple more, Personals is on there, which is online dating. I think it's quite interesting that it shows how people aren't very shallow because they're quite happy to see a little picture of the potential future partner, but actually they'll spend more, want to have a look at a big screen of the car that they're going to purchase. So I think that's a good thing. And tablet, it tends to be TV, family and youth, kids as well. I think parents give their children, which may impact the children results we saw earlier, give their kids the tablet to play with, whilst to keep them occupied. But also news is also pretty big on tablets as well. I also thought I'd put this in here. It's important to remember that platform share, it doesn't just vary by category, it varies hugely by brands as well. And given where majority of consumers are spending their time now, which is smartphone, for those brands where majority of the time is still spent on desktop, I think they've got some work to do. Mobile advertising, the latest IAB report has grown massively again, particularly mobile video advertising. So it's great for those organisations that have got a really good mobile audience. So this just goes to show. So like Yahoo and Microsoft, traditional portals still kind of got for an older desktop audience. But if you look at things like Spotify and there's other like Snapchat, they're almost exclusively mobile. Okay, so that's just a little bit about top line about what consumers are doing online. Within Comscore, there is a mobile measurement product where you can look at mobile apps. So I thought what I'd do is I'd share a little bit of information about mobile apps. So 78% of the UK online adult population used a mobile app in July 2017, which is pretty much nearly all of them. And you can have a look at this. This is total mobile reach and then mobile app reach. So slight difference. There's a bit of a gap in tablets. And again, that may be because slightly older audience, feel less confident about downloading apps, worried about maybe spending money or how's it going to work. So again, slight difference there. But pretty much everyone who's got a mobile, smartphone particularly, is actually using an app. And mobile apps account for 50% of all UK adults' time online. So you might remember earlier on, I said that smartphones account for 50% of time online. If you just look at apps, so that's mobile apps, tablet apps and smartphone apps, they now account for 50% of all UK's adult time online. So this is basically shows what the chart I showed before, but I've split out apps in this. So you can see smartphone apps and tablet apps. So if you added the smartphone apps and smartphone web together, you get that 50%. But if you split it out, you can see where smartphone apps and tablet apps. So apps are now much more important than the mobile web in terms of the time people spend on the different devices. They actually account for 80% of total mobile minutes, whereas the mobile browser only accounts for mobile web only accounts for 20% of the time spent on mobile. Yet again, though, mobile app is influenced by content and service. So even though I'm talking about 80-20, it's very different by categories. Here's just some categories. I could put them all up. To show games, very much dominated by apps. People download apps to play them, as is entertainment category. Retail, to a degree, I think that's kind of Amazon that's driving some of that, and eBay. But if you start looking down the line a little bit, things like beauty, fashion and style, retail and automotive, then it's still very much the time is spent on mobile web. Now, I'm not sure if that's a consumer choice thing. People don't want to download an automotive app from manufacturer, or whether it's literally the availability and how good they are in the marketplace. These are the top mobile app categories by audience in terms of category reach, in terms of millions. So in terms of the type of apps that are more likely to be used, it's entertainment, social media, and news apps as well. And IM, again, is pretty much WhatsApp in there. There's a hell of a lot of apps out there, but only a handful of them reach the majority of the online UK population. So I've looked at all the apps that Comscore measure, and there's a lot of them. I mean, it probably doesn't measure all of them, but I think there's probably over 1,000 apps that they're looking at on a monthly basis with an audience that actually is measurable. And you can see that there's very few, only 113 out of all the apps available have an audience of over 1 million, with only 2 or 3 having an audience of over 20 million. But actually, 2 global companies own 9 of the top 10 mobile apps. So I guess I'm not going to give any prizes for guessing what those 2 organisations are. But I thought I'd show you this. So this is on the what is it? Your left, on the left-hand side. It's pretty much Facebook and Google. You can see how many people are using the different apps, and these are the top apps in June, July. And then you can see smartphone, a couple of different ones come in, so Snapchat comes in. And then when you look at tablet, you start to see some of the entertainment. And actually, Hurrah, a UK brand, BBC iPlayer, when you start looking at tablet apps. Twitter also going in there, Snapchat, and some of the retail, eBay and Amazon Mobile. So that's looking at top 10 apps by the different platform in terms of audience. But of course, you may just go into Google Maps once, or you may go into Google Play because it's on your Android phone. You might actually not engage with it that much. In terms of engagement metrics, entertainment, social media, and gaming, this is where gaming comes in when you're looking at engagement metrics, they dominate the top 10. And if we look at the top 10 now by minutes, so minutes used, I've filtered this on any app with 1 million users so that we don't get some really silly ones in there with very, very high minutage. But if you look at those top apps and you look at the ones and you rank it by minutes, you can see some different ones coming in. So first of all, the obvious thing is you've got things like Spotify, you've got entertainment apps coming in there, on WhatsApp. And when you start looking at tablet apps, you get some of the British TV apps, so BBC, ITV, Sky, and also things like Netflix. So the entertainment apps really being consumed on tablet devices. I thought I'd look at it another way as well and look at actually average time spent. So clearly, if you're looking at total minutes, that is going to be reflective of how many users they've got to a degree. If you actually look at average time spent per visitor, so I'm looking at apps here, they don't necessarily have the highest reach, the highest audience, but they have those people who do use them a lot. And again, the different colours here just kind of show different categories. So the orange is entertainment, blue's kind of social, the dark blue. And the yellow is gaming. Now, you can see there, Words with Friends, Candy Crush Saga, Pokemon Go coming. I was actually really, really relieved when I actually ran this data, because for the last 6 months or so, my husband has got a bit of an obsession with a game called Clash of Clans. And I thought he was a bit unique in this, but I was actually relieved to know that there is more than 1 million people that share his obsession, and they spend 4 hours a month on it. And he claims that he spends less than that, so that's okay because he's below average, but I'm not quite sure. So I think I might have to start looking at that. Probably when he's in the toilet, if you go back to my other observation earlier on. These are the top 10 categories by average mobile minutes, social media and its games, so similar to what we saw before, but it's really the difference here is that games comes in. So not everybody is playing games on their devices, but those that do are very engaged and they spend a lot of time doing it. Okay, so that's a bit of snapshot on mobile. What am I doing for time? I'm going to zoom on now and just talk about some random stuff that we've done in the last last few months, just to show you the kind of things that we produce in terms of insights. And as I say, if you sign up to us, you get all this for free, regardless or not whether you sign up to Comscore. So these are various things we've done. I've looked at 1824s and traditional news brands, Airbnb, everyone's interested in, like, you know, players, disruptors, what's happening there. I've also looked at other things in the past, like Uber and social networks, what's going on there. So I'm just going to show a couple of things from these. So one of the things that we heard a lot, and this is probably relevant to more of you, is with the US election, it was all about fake news. And then with our election, it was very much like 18 to 24s, they were the ones that actually influenced the result. And it's social media. They're not reading newspapers anymore. They're getting all their news from uncorroborative stories. This is kind of obviously, you know, what we were hearing. They don't read newspapers anymore. They're just getting their information from their mates, and it's all, like, you know, biased, and we don't know if it's true or not because of fake news. So I thought what I'd do is I'd actually have a look at the data that we hold, or Comscore holds, to see whether what we're finding in terms of 18 to 24s and the press. And yes, it's true to say that, and I'm sure you all know this, that they're not buying newspapers anymore. However, to say that they're not relevant in their lives, I think is absolutely ridiculous. So anyone who says that, we've got loads of data to actually refute that. So what I've done here is, I was actually going to look at 18 to 24 Facebook users, but then I realised that because over 90% of 18 to 24s use Facebook, I might as well just look at 18 to 24s. So I did look at Twitter users, and it was a similar thing anyway. So basically, what I've done here is in June, the month, massive news month, general election, Grenfell Tower, and the terrorist attacks in London. It's a big news month. 18 to 24s. This was the reach for any online newspaper or news publication in terms of any content. So it doesn't necessarily mean they typed in, you know, www, but they actually accessed content via whatever means. It could be through a link on Twitter or a link on Facebook. They accessed some content from the traditional, what we call like the traditional press. 94% accessed from any of these titles, 89% accessed content from 2 or more. But you could say, well, yeah, but they're actually just looking at the Love Island gossip on the Daily Mail, or just reading about, I'll say Arsenal, because I'm an Arsenal fan, Arsenal on the Sun. So what I did is I looked at the news channels. So Comscore are able to kind of filter it down to news channels as defined by the publications themselves. And what I could see is that 84% viewed news content from the top 6 online traditional newspapers. So that's taking out things like Sky News and the BBC News, the ones in yellow. News content, 84% of 18 to 24-year-olds in June this year viewed some content from one of these providers. And actually, given the whole idea that, you know, that Facebook gives them a very narrow view of, you know, I guess news out there based on what people are sharing. What I also thought I'd do is I'd choose 2 newspapers who have got opposing political views. So the Mail Online, I think it's probably fair to say, and the Daily Mirror are at opposite ends of the political spectrum. And what you can see from this is again, this is just news reach. 48% actually viewed an article through either any means of going there direct, sharing, or seeing it on Apple News through the Mail Online, 41%. The Mirror. But if you look at those that actually consumed both, it was 22%. So 1 in 5 18 to 24s who had online were consuming news from both providers. Now, I think that is pretty high, and I'm sure that it's higher than the number of people who years ago would buy the paper publication from both of those. So actually, rather than it giving them a very narrow view, I think nowadays newspaper content is more, in premium newspaper content is more important than ever in the lives of 18 to 24-year-olds, and they're consuming it, you know, across the political spectrum from a number of publications. So they may not be loyal to one, they might not be going down to the newsagents and buying their paper copy, but still the content is very valuable. Another thing I had a look at was social media, and in July, I thought it was quite interesting to show that one of the things that people ask me a lot is, well, what's Snapchat's impact been on Facebook, particularly for 18 to 24-year-olds, because that's really Snapchat's core audience. And when you look at audience reach, you'll see that it's not really had much of an impact on Facebook at all. Facebook's still over 90%, and everybody is using it, 18 to 24s. And sorry, that should have a Snapchat logo on it, but Snapchat is the yellow, obviously, and that's going up to about 60% now of 18 to 24-year-olds online use Snapchat. But when you look at the actual minutes that they spend, so this is average minutes amongst users, you can see that recently Snapchat overtook Facebook. So that means that amongst users, don't forget Snapchat's got less users, but amongst those that do use it, they're spending more time using Snapchat than users 18 to 24 years are spending on Facebook. Interestingly, Instagram, sorry, the legend's gone, but I think you can see what it is. The Instagram has gone up, so it's not too alarming for Facebook, because maybe people are spending a bit more time on Facebook and less time, a bit more time on Instagram, sorry, and less time on Facebook. And you can see Twitter hasn't really changed much. Certainly, if anything, it's on a slight decline. Very quick here, we did some stuff in the summer. Sometimes we do stuff about topical, Airbnb, rapid growth outperformed the hotel sector. People often want to know about kind of new players and particularly the disruptors. This is Airbnb's audience. This is since January 2015. And you can see they've now got 4 million users. This was in July. So yes, probably kind of a reasonably decent month to choose for summer. But you can see actually also seasonal trends there. So it kind of dips in December for both the hotel sector and Airbnb overall, and people are less likely to be visiting travel websites. But overall, it's massively outperformed the hotel sector. So I think there's rumours that they might be introducing more of a luxury sector. So that could have a bigger impact rather than, I think, I was reading that that some people were loving the idea that they could be a tree house with no electricity and no water. That, to me, is not my idea of a fun weekend, but obviously it is to some. Okay, so moving on again, I know this is a bit of a whistle-stop tour, and I just really wanted to give you as much information as possible to show the type of stuff that can be done using the Comscore data, but also the kind of information that UCOM you can get through UCOM. Also because I think that there's a huge amount of potential in there in terms of looking at consumer insights, and I'm not sure it's always used to its full potential. I think often we just look at our own brands and look at the audience, track how we do each month, and that's that. So earlier this year, we were pleased to announce that UCOM has given development level approval to Comscore's VideoMetrics multi-platform product. That means that for any partners, publishers, media owners that cooperate through tagging or through other approaches, I won't go into those now, we can start looking at video measurement across all three platforms. So not everybody you have to partner with this, because you have to have content tagged or partner with Comscore to get it measured. So not everyone's doing it at the moment. It's only recently launched, and we're hoping that that's going to increase. A lot of the global companies are doing it, obviously, because Comscore in the US, people tend to do it there first, and then they'll get all their properties tracked. So fortunately, YouTube are on board with Comscore, and so we do have a wealth of information on YouTube. And given it's the biggest video player, I mean, I'm certainly not a sales force for YouTube here, but I thought it would probably be the best thing for me to show data from YouTube in terms of all the players out there. So this is just a snapshot. I'm just going to leave this up here, but it's huge. And I think the key thing for me is that if you're only looking at desktop video, you're missing a trick, because 79% of all videos consumed, all YouTube videos consumed, was on a mobile device. 74% of all viewing time on a mobile device. Young people generate 53% of all minutes and 56% of videos. So there's still a decent amount of people who are over 35 who actually use YouTube. The audience is huge. So here's a bit of a split here in terms of male-female. It's pretty much 50-50, and how that splits out by age. I wanted to show this because it's relatively new data that we have. And this is looking at the average number of videos per month by audience. So you can see that 18-24s are consuming over 400 YouTube videos per month. That's a huge amount. I'm going to whiz through this because I'm conscious of time. The other thing that we can have a look at through the YouTube data now in the VideoMetrics multi-platform is music videos. I thought this might be of interest, so we can look at stuff like the top 10 music artists on Vevo's YouTube channels. We have all the partner channels that YouTube measure. So this was in July. I hadn't heard of some of these, but I'm sure that's a reflection of my age rather than the fact that it's not measured, because when I actually looked online to see who they were, they had like number ones and they were big tunes in the summer. So I was like, that's clearly me rather than the measurement. But you can have things like number of videos per viewer, minutes per viewer. And this is the Warner's one as well. So Ed Sheeran, their number one artist. When I presented this, someone said, oh, Linkin Park, the reason that's up there is because of the death of the frontman. So I'm going to show you a few slides on that, because that generated another little bit of interest for me. You can look at trend data. So I'm fortunate to show this today, given the news overnight. But this is showing what happened when there was the Manchester terror attacks they happened on the 23rd of May, 22nd of May. So you can see it started to increase, but really, because it was the end of the month, June, there was a huge increase in Ariana Grande's videos and her reach. And obviously she did the concert as well. So big increase when there's a big event. And I said before, I was actually thought it would be interesting to look at. Unfortunately, there's been quite a lot of celebrity music deaths this year and in the last year. I was watching the George Michael documentary a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of made me think, I wonder actually what happens to video viewing when a big musician passes away. So I was like looking to see, unfortunately, because the data is relatively new, I couldn't look at David Bowie or Prince, but I was able to look at some who probably are big in the minds of 18, 24-year-olds. I'm just not so up on music these days. But Linkin Park, you can see the month of his death, Chester Bennington's death in July, huge increase in the videos. The same for George Michael. Interestingly, not the same volume of videos consumed, but again, when you look at the profile of who's consuming them, his profile is very much 35 to 54, whereas Linkin Park is very much an under 24, under 34 profile. So I think that is kind of, given what we've said today about how usage is impacted by age, I think that probably shows that as well. Soundgarden as well, Chris Cornell's suicide in May, huge increase. Again, so thought just gives you a flavour of the kind of stuff that you can get from the tool, and obviously you can also do anything around your own brand or potential media that you're looking to advertise in. That's the traditional way I think that Comscore data has been used. We look at it more insights, trends, things that we think might be useful for the marketplace. We'll leave the kind of the media planning stuff to you guys to do. But don't forget, you can look at all competitors in there. So as I say, I'm not a Salesforce because we don't sell anything. We're an industry body. But what I really wanted to highlight is that this is industry standard data. It's representative, it's scrutinized, and it covers all brands, all media, all platforms, and it's based on people, not machines. So what I'm going to do now is, I've got about 20 minutes, so I'm going to do a very short quiz, okay? Just a little bit of fun. And because we're an industry body, we don't have big prizes. I used to work at Xbox, and it was always great, because you'd go along and you'd give Xbox games, and sometimes you'd even give an actual Xbox. So I've got some scratch cards. So not quite the same, but you never know, because if you won 50,000, then I'm sure that would be better than getting actually 100,000. That would be better than getting an Xbox. So a bit of fun, so you can shout out the answers, and maybe you can listen out for me, Scott, to see who you think shouted, because I don't want there to be a fight over a scratch card, I really don't. Okay, so here we go. First question. Which member of One Direction had the most video views on Vivo's YouTube channel in July? This is done a while ago, so apologies, it's kind of, you've got to think back a bit, but. Harry Styles? Liam? I'm not actually, can't remember the answer. It is Liam. So, Mike, well done. Yeah, bit of a fix. You're not allowed to win. Is it quite interesting? So these are the data, but actually it was quite interesting because if you looked at the guys, I mean, I've got a small daughter, so I thought One Direction, everyone's heard of them. If I put up some of the others that nobody had heard of, I thought everyone knows who One Direction is, surely. But you could see that I think Zayn has had the most 1 month, then Harry had the most the next month, and then it was Liam, and then Niall, and unfortunately Louis actually hadn't got #1 at any time, but I think he's just signed a record deal, so maybe if we looked at this in a few months' time, he might be top of the list. Okay, next question. Which Premier League football team had the biggest online audience in August 2017? This is the month, this is the beginning of the season. Who do we think? Arsenal? Any other guesses? There's a scratch card at stake here. Come on, be brave. No. 1 in 2 opportunity now. Yes, Manchester United. Well done. If you all shout, I can actually give out 2 per question. So shout at the same time, and don't be polite. Okay, actually, here's the results. There. Very close with Liverpool, though, so I'll give you that. But okay, next question. I know this isn't really related to work too much, but I think it just shows you the kind of information you can get out there. A bit of fun. Next question. I think I'm going to do a bit more worky ones than the last 2. Okay, so you've seen some of this earlier. So which gaming mobile app does the red line represent?
Pokemon Go.
Yes. Good man. Ooh, gone back. Yeah, they're... you go. I actually put them up in case no one could guess, but I forgot that I'd actually told you some of the brands earlier on. Pokemon Go's visitors dropped by 8 million. So it was peaked in July 2016 with 9 million users, and it's kind of continued to go down once the novelty wears off. So it's interesting with these things, you know, looking at trends, sometimes you might miss something because it might not always be big, it might come and go, but we are able to look at that and pick up anything in the system. Okay, next question. There's only 5, so don't worry, and I think I'm pretty much okay with time. Women account for more than 70% of time spent on which of these social networking services? I couldn't hear. Who said? I think you said something. You said Pinterest as well, didn't you? Is it you? So I'll give you both one because we've got some extras. Who's the lady over the back that said it? Is it somebody? Yeah. There you go. It's funny that both people who won were ladies. Here we go. Thank you. Okay, last chance now. This is the last chance, last prize, and I've still got a few left. So unless you all shout out, we might be, doing some scratching later on. Might not see me after this. Right. Okay. Number 5. Oh, there we go. Pinterest. And actually, just to show you the data, there it is, females and males. So nearly 80% of time spent is by females, 18 plus, whereas LinkedIn sort of more male. So you can look at things like this. It's interesting. Okay, finally, last question. What brand is missing at number 3? These are the top mobile apps ranked by minutes. Yes, Spotify. Well done. There we go. Spotify. So just a reminder, we've got our quarterly report coming out in the next couple of weeks, which gives loads of data on the top 10s of everything, the top 20s, a lot of the kind of stuff you've seen today. If you are interested in what we do and you've got any ideas for categories or audiences or anything you'd like us to do, let me know, because we're a very small team, but we'd be happy to help, as I'm sure Comscore would as well. So that's us. That's our website, ucom.uk.net. You can email us as well, and we'll pick it up. And that's it. Any questions? How have we got? Got 15 minutes, so... Sorry? Do I finish at 11? Oh, gosh. Well, we've got lots of time for questions. Gosh, that was quick.
I've actually got a question.
Yeah.
Which is more about measurement of apps. I mean, one of the...
I would have gone much slower. I don't know why I was thinking that. I think I usually have an hour.
You can answer really slowly.
Yeah, sure.
One of the measurement of the apps, it had some maps in there which must have very low engagement. So Peel Smart Remote.
Yes. Yes.
So that's clearly because it's on in the background, but it's not being engaged with. Is there a way of measuring an engagement with an app as opposed to the fact that it's just on your phone? It's been switched on. Peel Smart Remote is it operates your TV remote.
Yeah, I'll pick this up. It's a methodology question, really.
Yeah.
We have changed with a load of technology updates, so background calls from apps are now excluded.
Okay.
So it will be in that data, but from September data, we're cutting out background calls.
Yeah, I probably should say that. I mean, September data is just out. I haven't updated it all because it's quite a lot to do, and also we want to have a proper look at the data because there's been a couple of methodology changes. They've changed the establishment survey, so you'll see some of the mobile data going up, but when that gets sent out, all that will be explained and for things like that. So with online, very different to TV because things are constantly changing. Like there's new operating systems all the time, and Google keep changing from Android 6 to Android 7. It's a real hard job for the guys at Comscore to keep up with it all and make sure they're measuring it. So we could stand still and just say, right, for trend purposes, we'll just measure how we've measured, but then we wouldn't really be reflective of the market. So we believe that we have to move forward and make it more and more accurate, or not accurate, but better and better and enhanced each time something new comes out. That does mean, obviously, that trending sometimes is not always that easy to do because we make improvements, or Comscore make improvements.
In a similar vein, the rules have also changed about multiple apps running. To reflect, if you're listening to Spotify in the background, that's something on a news site or something, both are now being credited with the duration. Whereas previously it would only be what was in focus.
Yeah.
So you will find there are more than 24 hours of data, but that's why.
Any other questions?
You broke out the figures by where they consume, such as not just where people say they use stuff, but usage in the workplace versus private homes on that side. Figures where content's being consumed behind boxes and that.
Do you want to take this one? Or so on the desktop data, we very much there was I say we. It's not us that does the measurement. It's Comscore. So there's work and home. It's quite hard with a mobile to classify what's for work and what's for home now because people are pretty much on the go. So I don't think it's split out for mobile, is it? I mean, I don't think it is for mobile. But for desktop, if you wanted to look at the desktop and you just wanted to look at work usage, you can do that. So, yeah. Any other question? Yeah.
Is there any difference in the data between apps that people pay for and continue to have in-app purchases versus things which are just completely free the moment they download it?
So we can't tell which ones are paid for or not. So it would involve a piece of work where someone gives this a list of those who are paid and those free. But I mean, you could manually do it if you knew that. So that's something maybe we could take a look at. But it's not something I've done yet. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. I mean, I don't know whether I'm glad Mike's here because he can be scribbling things down to take back because they may be able to. There may be a way that they can see that. But from the data that we get, it's kind of aggregated and we can't have a look. So. Any other questions? I can't believe I've kind of whizzing it through, thinking it was perfect timing. And was I going too fast, or was it okay for everybody? Quick, not data in there. So, any other questions? Did you have another one?
Just last one then. I know the penetration is really small for other devices like watches. I watch stuff. But again, is that something that you're seeing start to grow?
Yeah, we call them OTT, mainly about smartphones. It's in development. The question, it's always if it's possible to measure.
Yeah.
In Comscore US,
I was about to say that, yeah.
They've introduced a whole router panel.
Okay.
So anything coming into the home and being distributed onto the device via Wi-Fi, it's being measured.
Yeah, so the US will measure games consoles and Alexa and things like that. So, I mean, on this, I was actually having a look at this because you can see, we have an Alexa, but I didn't set it up, my husband did. But you can see usage of the Alexa mobile app. So I don't know if you wanted to kind of get an idea. I was actually thinking of the profile of Alexa users, and I tried to cross it with Spotify because one of the things that we find the most valuable at it, I don't know how many people have got an Alexa, but is actually just being able to tell it to put music on if you've got a Spotify account. So I think there's a pretty big crossover there, but it's interesting to know what Alexa's used for other than that. And at the moment we don't have that information, but you can see usage of the app at least. So
that's it today. We don't have it, but it's on the roadmap.
any other questions? Anything people would like us to do in the future?
Quite a generic one, but what do you see as the main trends for 2018?
Oh, God. Well, I'm not a futurologist, so and we're in 2017, so I think, obvious ones, like there's going to be still continued movement, I think, in terms of time spent towards smartphones. You guys, I think, chip in? Sorry? Voice activated, yeah.
I think GDPR is going to be picking up very quickly as we move towards the end of the year. I think we're still, most of the lawyers that we've spoken to, we've got a team working on it in the US, and they've just hired a team of lawyers here in the UK, and they're quite reluctant to give any external viewpoint until they've seen the final white paper from the government that comes out, I believe, early December. Because there's still still quite a lot of definitions that we're waiting to have confirmed as to what it will actually mean for not just media businesses but wider businesses. I think a lot of the thought at the moment is it's either going to be just another step along a route that digital measurements taken with regard to email opt-ins and then cookie acceptance to GDPR, or could it be that in fact most of the businesses in the UK fall foul of GDPR? So I think it's a lot of wait and see, but time is moving on quickly, and May 25th will come around super quickly. Sort of throwing that question back to you guys and publishers. Are your teams internally working on this yet, or are you also waiting for this white paper to come out?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. So, yeah, working on it, but also because you don't want to do something that's going to be so onerous, and then find out that you didn't have to. So yeah, it's just a bit of both. Yeah.
I think many I've spoken to are taking the view of we're assessing
Yeah.
what we've got, what we're looking at doing, what our exposure is,
Yeah.
to show that everything else we've done some due diligence, we'd be full power of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
I think the big difference from what I've read is that it's going to be much more about opting in as opposed to opting out previously. Whereas you have to find the areas that opt out, so most of the way to find it. Now it's been quite blatant about you have to opt in and understand exactly what you're actually opting into. So being aware of the data that you're passing across, how long they're keeping that data for, and what they're going to do with it.
One of our areas usually is what constitutes personal data and what doesn't. There's a much broader definition of that as well.
Yeah, and there's lots of debate taking place about whether people, by giving their personal data, they'll have adverts targeted at them which are more relevant as opposed to getting an ad anyway and it just being irrelevant for you. I guess that's an industry perspective as opposed to outside the industry. But we'll see.
Any other questions?
You mentioned tagging videos.
Mhm.
Not all publishers are involved in that. What's the reason behind it? Is it sort of reticence to be involved in it, or is it the technology behind it?
Well, I kind of trying to be diplomatic. I mean, a lot of the UK TV organisations, they already are tagging for barb measurement with Dovetail. So I don't know if people are aware of that. So, we are at EUCOM. We work with PAMCO as well to have the measurement for EUCOM in the digital publisher measurement. There's obviously TV that's measured by Barb, and they have their kind of people meter, and they've also got a project called Dovetail, which they're measuring online video from the premium TV companies, so like Sky, ITV, Channel 5. I think it's one of the things I always think about in terms of different JICs doing different things. We're very open. We'd love to kind of be involved in measuring everything because digital, even with audio, we could look at. We've got figures on like Global Radio in terms of how many people are listening. But obviously there's kind of different projects going on, and I think companies probably don't want to be tagged multiple times. So a lot of the stuff in here is more the global players, so like CNN, but we haven't got, or Comscore haven't yet. And also it's very early days as well, isn't it? So I mean, this data, the multi-platform data has not been out for very long. So hopefully when people see the value of it, we'll measure everything that's video if we can, rather than it just being like premium content or just short form video or whatever. So I say we. I'm talking kind of we because it's EUCOM that's the product, but Comscore are the ones that do the measurement. So I know I finished early, and I apologise for that. It means you have a long tea break, but I thought I'll keep you for a couple more minutes because I really wanted to do what I wanted to show you today is really just how there's a huge amount of data out there. It's based on people, and I think that's a really important thing to state. And it covers everything, so it's not just provided. Whilst, say, there's some brilliant data out there, it's like this is representative. It's we have a very rigorous approach to recruiting a panel of people and then tagging sites to make sure that it is representative of the whole of the UK population. And we do think it's important that there is that third-party measure out there. I also think it's quite interesting that, as I say, traditionally when this first came about, so I worked at Microsoft for years, Microsoft Advertising, and I was one of the people in 2009 or whatever that sat with Scott who worked at AOL, and when Microsoft and AOL, and I think he was the other one, Yahoo, were the big players and before Facebook and the like came on board. Then it was very much used for, trying to sell our inventory versus competitors by saying we reach the biggest amount. Obviously, things have changed now with the introduction of programmatic and the fact that now, you don't have to show what your audience is. You can just sell your audience through targeting. But I still think it is a value. It's a value for private marketplaces. It's a value particularly to sort of show the value of premium content, the loyalty, how much time people are spending, which obviously is kind of very relevant to a lot of you guys. And I think that, one of the things I wanted to show today was how valuable it is from an insight perspective. And I think for me, I'm quite fascinated about how consumer behaviour has changed. And given a couple of examples, and then I'll leave you, for the good and the bad. So, and again, a couple of personal anecdotes here, because I've got a bit of time. So I've got 2 young kids, as I said before, 5 and a 3-year-old, and I love online shopping. I don't think my kids actually know what a supermarket is, because we never go. I might take them to the corner shop to get some milk or some bread, but the thought of actually, getting them out, going to the supermarket, walking around for ages, I don't have the time for it. And actually, previous experience tells me, from when they were very little babies, that it's actually quite painful. So we do all our shopping online, and my kids think that they just naturally think that the way you get food is that the Tesco man, I probably shouldn't have said the brand there, it used to be Ocado, Tesco man knocks on the door every Wednesday with a whole load of food. They get very excited. But I had a rather, a less than positive experience yesterday, because I'd ordered, as part of my shopping delivery, this is completely relevant, but I'd ordered 2 pumpkins for obvious reasons. And when the man came, they'd been substituted, and we got 2 butternut squash. And I just think that kind of shows that, we talk about automation and the human touch. That actually was a human person picking them, and I was kind of thinking, really? And I think even the delivery driver was a little bit embarrassed. But ultimately, I had 2 unhappy kids, and that's my fault for not going to the supermarket. But it goes to show, whilst online shopping can be great, obviously not always, they don't always get what you want. And another one, which I kind of talked about here, I just thought it was really interesting, again, reflecting on human behaviour. So what I showed you earlier was how where people go online now when there's a passing of a famous musician, and you can see that the volumes of videos and stuff goes up hugely. And I remember, again, when I was a small child, and I was at home, and my mum was looking after me. I think I was about 8 at the time, but I'm showing my age now. And the news came on the radio that John Lennon had died. And my mum was actually a little bit distraught, but I didn't really realise why, because obviously she was a big Beatles fan, and she was like, I can't believe it. And I said to her mum, who's John Lennon? Because I didn't know who he was. She was a bit shocked at first that I didn't know who he was, but then she went and she kind of went through her vinyl records to find a picture of the Beatles, to then show me who he was, and then she put the record on to show me what the music was. And I just kind of, looking at things now, I was just saying, you could just, within 10 seconds, you put in an artist, whether it's search, YouTube, you can look at their, video of them, their music, their complete history. And I think it just goes to show how times have changed in the short period. And there was no Channel 4 or Channel 5, and there certainly wasn't any 24-hour news. So you could think, I'll just turn the news on. It'll be on, it's massive news. Not necessarily, unless it was on the hour. So I think it just goes to show how much things have changed, and it's kind of really interesting looking at consumer behaviour, even just things like Pokemon Go, how massive thing. Interesting to see next year what's happened to Uber users, and whether Lyft, given Google have just said that Alphabet is just buying that, whether we're going to see a change there. Things are moving really fast, and I just kind of thought I'd leave you with that, because there's a whole host of insights in there that we can gain looking at what humans are doing online and how they're using products and services. And so if you are a subscriber to Comscore, I'd say delve into the data if you've got the time and have a look at it, because you'll probably find something quite surprising and maybe a little interesting. Okay, that's it. Thank you. So you're still half an hour early, but I think you can probably just they might not be ready for you, but I'll hang around here as well if anyone wants to ask me anything. I've still got some extra scratch cards.